رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين والصلاة والسلام على رسوله وحبيبه أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد اللهم صل على محمد ولعنة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى يوم الدين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Continuing, wrapping up the topic of istighfar. Istighfar is, as we mentioned before, is one of the components of tawbah. And tawbah is turning towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every time we commit a sin, every time we disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we turn away from Allah. And it is almost like a mirror type of a reaction. When we turn away from Allah, Allah turns away from us. You know, this is like us, we're facing Allah, we turn away from Allah, Allah turns away from us. And this is why, for example, every time we turn back to Allah, Allah turns back towards us. And this is why Allah's name is Tawheed, the one who's always turning, towards us. I remember we have this hadith where we say that Allah, for example, He waits for us to come to Him, to turn back to Him. Allah, for example, we say that Allah rejoices when we turn towards Him. And that this idea of Allah rejoicing when we turn towards Him is something that we could implement. And this is why, for example, the believer is always seeking forgiveness from Allah. Always doing istighfar. Could we reach a state where we do not do istighfar? No. We do not reach a state where we do not do istighfar. Because if we don't do istighfar with our bodies, with our limbs, we might have the inclination to do it in our hearts. We might want to do it in our hearts, but we refuse to do it, which is good, which is at one level of istighfar. And if we don't want to do it in our hearts, then the shaitan is one who is always trying to nag at us in order for us to turn away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if the shaitan is prevented or is not affecting us in this way, then many times we have a level of negligence. We are not able to always remember. Okay? And if maybe we are able to always remember, then the very act of istighfar itself is not sufficient, but Allah in His mercy accepts it. So we are always in a state of istighfar. And as you remember, we spoke yesterday about the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam himself. Always seeking forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala 70 times every day. And so this is one of the things that we should do. Who are we if we don't seek forgiveness of Allah 70 times every day? Who are we when the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is always seeking istighfar 70 times a day? We should be seeking istighfar from Allah 1,000 times a day. You see, but this is why, for example, in Salatul Layl, we have one aspect of it when we are standing to ask Allah for forgiveness. And one of the best ways to ask Allah for forgiveness is first, before you ask Allah for forgiveness, you ask Allah for forgiveness for 40 mu'mineen. We always must pray or try to pray for others before we pray for ourselves. And indeed, we have a hadith that says, if a Muslim, if a mu'min prays for another person, prays for other people, his own prayers will be answered even before he even asks Allah or supplicates to Allah for his needs. Give salawat to the Holy Prophet Muhammad and his family. There's a statement by the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam where he says, an adulterer does not commit adultery while he's a believer. An adulterer does not commit adultery while he's a believer. Does that mean that when the adulterer is committing adultery, or the thief is stealing, or somebody is lying, or somebody is doing something wrong to somebody else, that person says, I don't believe in God? No, it doesn't mean that at all. Okay. As we know, for example, we saw, one of the things I saw, on TV was Saddam about to be executed, you know, or Saddam in the court, you know, and he's calling on the name of God, you know, before he gets executed, he says, Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah, for example. Okay? A person could do a sin and still be, quote unquote, a believer, in the sense that they still say that I believe in God. So what does it mean when it says, when the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says that an adulterer does not commit adultery while he's a believer? It is because the very act of the sin itself is an act of turning away from God. The very act of the sin itself is an act in practice that is an act of unbelief. Because when you are doing a sin, you are not doing muraqabah. You're not in a state of qurb or nearness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And indeed, in a objective sense, this is the essence of what being a mu'min or a Muslim is. A Muslim is somebody who knows and accepts that God exists, and the mu'min believes and behaves as if he is in the presence of Allah. So when you're doing a sin, what you're actually saying in your actions is that I do not believe that Allah is watching me. I don't believe that Allah is seeing this. And even if I think He is seeing this, I don't take it seriously. I am not aware of the consequences, or I refuse to be aware of the consequences of my actions. Imam Ali alayhi salam says, be embarrassed or be ashamed in front of Allah, even if you put between Him and you the thinnest of veils, the thinnest of hijabs between you and Allah. Even if that is the case, still be always in a sense of being in the presence of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you know, this is something that we can practice in our prayer. You know the prayer, the statement, you know, worship Allah as if you can see Him, and if you cannot see Him, He sees you. One of the practices of the Urafa is to seriously think and get into the state where you are very much aware of being observed by Allah. Imagine, for example, in this room here, you hear somebody speaking to the other person quietly saying, did you place the hidden microphone in the room to pick up the voices of everybody? Okay? Just imagine you hear somebody saying this. What would you start thinking? You will start thinking that there's a microphone in this room. Most likely there is, by MI5 or something. But there's a microphone in this room that is actually there to pick up what you're saying. If you believe this and you think of it so much, you will have a different experience. You will actually be aware, almost, that a microphone is in the room. You know, or if somebody says to you, that darkened room there is a jinn in that room, for example. There's nothing in the room, nothing at all, but there's a jinn in the room. I was in there and the jinn tickled my ear, for example, or something. You know, what's going to happen with you? You're going to go in that room and your ears are going to start tingling. Right? This is the power of the imagination. This is the power of the imagination. Do not underestimate the power of the imagination. Right? The imagination is a very important component of our minds, of our intellect. You cannot do anything without imagination. You might know about doing something, but if you're doing that thing and you do not have an idea of the goal to be achieved, you can't do it. You have to imagine that goal. And so Allah wants you to engage all of your faculties, in terms of coming close to Him. Your faculty of your intellect, the faculty of your imagination. And so, when we are before we do a sin, we have to seriously and deeply think about that particular sin and know that Allah is watching us. And so therefore we have in the soul of a human being, these two forces. We have the forces of the intellect, which tell us that the God exists, and we have the force of the passion or the desires, or hawa, that push us to do things that might not be right. And our intellect and our passions battle with each other for superiority. If your intellect is strong, the forces of Hawa is going to be weak. If your forces of your Hawa is strong, your intellect is weak, and so you are now prone to the insinuation of the shaitan. This is why it is very, very important when we look at children, for example. We see that a child's intellect starts to develop, starts to become aware around 7 years old. Around the age of 7, all right? Which is about 6 and something in primary terms. Sorry, in solar years, right? 7 is in primary years. So around that time, a child becomes more able to use the intellect, and this increases, to adolescence and reaches maturity at 40. If we do not engage that child in using the intellect, if we do not provide for that child the imagination necessary for that intellect to grow, for example, telling them stories of the Holy Prophet and the Imams alayhim salam and the Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam and so on. If we do not do this for that child, what happens is that intellect will not develop in a proper way. Yes, they might end up going to school and learning their arithmetic and their English and so forth and so on, but their spiritual intellect, their religious intellect becomes weakened. This is why it becomes extremely, extremely important to have programs for our youth in centers. Extremely important. It's extremely important for us to have at least weekend schools for the little toddlers so that they are growing up within Islamic educational environment and they are engaging their minds, thinking about Islam, so that by the time they get older, they are able to resist. The devil knows this. The devil knows this. And right now I'm going to tell you, brothers and sisters who are listening, that at this moment, there is a program in the school system called RSE, Relationship and Sexual Education. And right now they are targeting kids in the kindergarten, kids in primary school, kids who are 4 years old and 5 years old, and telling them about the normalcy of having 2 moms or 2 dads, okay? They're telling them that from that age. So by the time they get to 15 and 16, there's nothing you can do to change these guys. Nothing. Because they are already programmed to think in this particular manner. Okay, relationship and sexual education. And you all should pursue this because parents have a right to be able to have a word in terms of how the education of their children is being taught. But it's not so simple. This is important, but it is not so simple. Because the legal efforts are there to say that the state has the right to teach certain things that not even your religion could say no to. A lot of people think that religion shouldn't get involved in politics. A lot of people think this, all right? This is erroneous. In a case like this, you have to be able to decide the fate of a government by going to the polls, by voting. Now, us Shias are a small minority. What can we change? Politics is making alliances. It's making alliances. When you look at the Zionists, don't they make alliances with the ruling classes in this society? They can't do it by themselves. So do we. We are the moral majority. There are a lot of Hindus out there. You stop thinking about whether they're kuffar and they're nasty and stuff like that. Get away from that type of thought. They're a religion. And they also don't teach that type of thing. And they also are concerned about that type of thing. There are Sikhs out there who feel the same way. There are Christians out there who feel the same way. And we have to go reach out to them and make alliances with them to be able to change the situation. If we do not do so, we are the ones who have to answer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the day of judgment. Okay? And why your child turned out to be, this or that. Why your child turned out to be supporting facade in the society. What did you do about it? This is what we have to do, brothers and sisters. And I think it is going to be in 2019. Okay, by September or so, 2019. So we have about a year that this thing is going to be put into practice. Alright? Now if you want more information, I can leave it with Sheikh Qasimi, about certain speakers who could come and educate us more about this, and who would give you, for example, letters, formal letters that you could just sign your name and so forth, and you could send to your school system, and you could put pressure on your school. But it is up to us to make outreach. We cannot do this by ourselves. But we have to be prepared. We have to be prepared to take passive resistance. And passive resistance might just mean, and you might have not to send your child to school. And you might have to pay the price for that. Okay? And you may take that off the screen, open it on the internet, that part of it. Okay? This is something serious. And this is where the intellect comes in. This is what education does. This is what education does. A lot of Muslims in this country think their children are like them as adults. They came here to get their PhD and to get their qualifications and stuff like that, and they think, that going to school, my child will become like me. No, they're not going to become like you. They'll be worse than you. And it's not that they will be going to hell alone. They're taking you too, because you love them. You see, and you're going to make compromises for them to keep them in the house. You end up agreeing with them. So you have to take matters in your own hands. And you got to stop thinking like we are a bunch of Kharijis in this place. You have to stop thinking like this. We're no longer Kharijis, brothers. Okay? We're no longer Kharijis. If you think you're a Khariji, if you think you're a foreigner, with a British passport, but then go where or operate on the basis of the country you think you are aligned with. And you send the kids there. Don't leave them here. But if you want your family with you, and you want your kids with you, you got to start thinking about saving their souls. Because if you don't, they are going to be among the forces of the Dajjal. Alhamdulillah. Give salawat to the Holy Prophet Muhammad and his family. Now istighfar, as I mentioned yesterday, tawbah includes rectifying some of the things you do that are in your power. Rectifying some of the things you did that is in your power. And one of the most important and the closest things in our power is apology. When you wrong somebody, you must apologize to them. Ramadan, and especially tonight, the night of Qadr, is the month of istighfar, and in this night of Qadr, it is also a time of istighfar. So I would recommend that all of us, what we have to do is not just sit down and just say astaghfirullah wa atubu ilayhi and just astaghfirullah. What do you think? What do you think this is? You think Allah is stupid? Right? Just because you say this, without thinking, you think you'll get somewhere? No! You have to think about yourself. What have I done to people? What kind of person have I been that has been treating people in the wrong way on a consistent basis? What is it that most people complain about me for? What is it that my wife complains about me for? Because your wife knows you more than you. What is it about my kids that they don't like about me? Why is it that my co-workers feel badly about me? This is how you have to think. And then you have to look at this thing and say, what a wretch you are. What a wretch I am. But a person who's so undeserving of Allah's mercy for being so bad and so evil, and you go to Allah with that, and you cry in your heart, and you feel embarrassed in front of Him, and you say, I'm sorry, oh Lord, I'm sorry, oh gosh, please, this night of Qadr, please take this nasty tendency away from me, whatever you do. And then when you finish that, you are certain, you make it clear that you would never do this thing again. You're going to try to be better to people. You're trying to not behave like this. And because it's habitual, you see, you can't just break a habit in a day. It will come back. You'll catch yourself doing the same thing. But Allah loves those who ask for forgiveness often. And the more you ask for forgiveness for this thing, the more you become aware of it, the more you could prevent it, the more you could circumvent it, and the better you become. And then people will start to see the light in your face. Then they'll start to see the better personality that you have. Then they'll start to say that so-and-so is a nice person, a good person. Then the people who dislike you, you realize that they dislike you for the evil in their hearts, not for the evil that you have done. This is istighfar. They planted the trees of their sins in front of them and watered it with their tears, Imam Ali alayhi salam says. That you always keep in mind your sins. You know, Ayatollah Behjat was quoted to have said, you know, when we mourn for Imam Hussein alayhi salam and so on, he says, don't think that you're talking about, you know, people out there. You know, you're talking about those people on the plain of Karbala. No, because you have in your soul a shimmer. You have in your own soul a shimmer. You have in your own soul Ahl Kufa. You have in your own soul an Abbas. You have in your own soul a Hussein. And these forces in your soul are always struggling and fighting with each other. So when you have your conscience tells you that you should do X, and you say, no, I should do X, but I'm afraid of the boss, I'm afraid of my friend, I'm afraid what people would say, you are the people of Kufa. And sometimes you're not stable. It's not that you're always Ahl Kufa. Sometimes you're Hussein. Many times you're Hussein, and little things that we could control, that are easy to overcome. But the difficult ones, we are Ahl Kufa. Or when you are committed to a negative way of life, you have some habit that you don't want to die because you get so much pleasure from it. So when your conscience, which is your Husseini conscience, tells you, you know what, this is wrong, right? You stamp it out, you chop off its head, you are ashamed to your own soul. This story of Karbala is not just something that occurred in history. This is something that is occurring in our souls itself. So I encourage you, brothers and sisters, to take our istighfar seriously. Istighfar is a very important precondition to getting close to Allah. Because sins put distance between us and Allah. Sins put a barrier to the result of dua. When you pray and ask Allah for something and you don't get it, many times it's coming, but your sin is like a rain. But your sin is like an umbrella. You always have it up there because you're shielding yourself from the barakah that Allah is sending upon you. When we do this proper istighfar, we will see how we become successful. We will see how we become prosperous. We will see how we become content. And we'll be happier. As Dr. Farsi, Sobat Salam alaikum. ادامه دادن موضوع استغفار ما میگیم که استغفار چیزی است که باید جدی بشیم که وقتی که استغفار میکنیم باید در فکر نقص ما داشته باشه. آن چیزی که تو شخصیت ما هست که مورد تکراری عمل سوء ما است. به خاطر این که گناه یک پترن داره. ما همیشه در این هنگام انجام میدیم یک چیزی که همیشه این کار میکنیم. اگر مثلا ما غرور داریم، هر چیزی که داریم که مثلا مورد افتخار ما غرور پیدا میکنیم. باید بدونیم که مثلا نظر دیگران چه است برای ما. ازواج ما چه فکری دارند، خانم‌های ما، شوهرهای ما چه بیشتر میگن در رابطه با ما، بچه‌های ما، دوستان ما، همکاران ما. این باید داشته باشه. به خاطر اینکه توسط اون میتونیم نقاط نقص ما پیدا کنیم و در توجه اون داشته باشه و پیش خدا بریم. آیت الله بهجت فرمودن که همه آنها که تو صحنه کربلا بودن، هر یکی از آنها تو نفس ما هستند. یا حسینی است، یا شمر است، یا زینب است، یا عباس است. همه دارند، همه هستند. هر وقتی که ما میدونیم که راه راست چیه و میترسیم از دیگران، ما اهل کوفه ایم. هر وقتی که به خاطر تعلق ما چسبیدن ما به گناه که از اون لذت میبریم، به اون صدای حسینی کشته میکشیم، این ما شمر هستیم. وقتی که روز قیامت میاد تعجب میکنیم که شمر پهلو ماست. ما سینه زنی میکنیم اما بیرون ما شیعه هستیم، اما درون ما چیزی دیگه است. روز قیامت آن چیزی که پنهان است ظاهر میشه و آن چیزی که ظاهر است پنهان میشه. الان شکل انسان داریم اما داخل ما چی هستیم؟ چه حیوانی هستیم؟ استغفار مقدم هر کاری، هر عملی خوبی است، هر عملی عبادی هستش استغفار. بدون استغفار نمیتونیم به خدا برسیم. اسم خدا التواب. توبه یعنی چی؟ توبه ما به طرف خدا توبه میکنیم، نمیدونم چی، میچرخیم به طرف خدا. هر وقتی که از خدا دور بشیم، هر وقتی که گناه میکنیم، ما میچرخیم از خدا. پس اینجوری میشه خدا همیشه تواب است، همیشه منتظر ماست. یه حدیثی هست خدا میگن که اگر گناههای عبد من به تعداد ستاره تو آسمون میشه، نباید از غفران ما یائس میشن. اسم خدا الغفور است و قبلا گفتیم که خدا خیلی شادمان هستش، خیلی خوشحال است وقتی که به طرف او نشان طرف میکنیم. پس سعی کنیم که امشب در این فکر داشته باشه، به خدا بگیم که خدا من میخوام به شما برگردم. من میخوام شما تو من رو قبول کنید. من میخوام عبد واقعی تو باشیم و انشاءالله به هدف خوب میرسیم. السلام علیکم و رحمت الله و برکاته.